First, I want to thank everyone for being here on this day, and I agree. We should have Patriots Day as a holiday so that we never forget. Now, many of you know that I'm a veteran. I went to a military school that taught me that you never quit. That's anything mental or physical. And we must never forget what was done on that eventful day. I'm sure most of you can remember exactly where you were on that day. I know I do. I remember where I was, exactly what I was doing when John F. Kennedy was shot. And I know where I was and what I was doing when I saw the plane fly into the tower. It was burned into my head that there was no way I could ever forget that. And I want to welcome everybody here, and I want to recognize our veterans and first responders. Would you raise your hand or stand up if you're a veteran or first responder? And I mentioned most everyone here is. Let's give ourselves a round of applause here, folks. These are our heroes. You know, 20 years ago today, right around 05:45 Eastern Standard Time, as many Americans were getting ready, their day started, sipping their morning coffee, fighting rush hour traffic, or dropping kids off at daycare or schools. 19 terrorists were boarding 4 separate flights in New Jersey, Boston, and LA. Their mission to destroy and cause as much harm to American people and our nation as possible. Along with the terrorists, many innocent passengers and crew also boarded those flights, not knowing what was about to unfold. At 07:59, American Airlines Flight 11 took off out of Boston International just moments before United Flight 175 took off at 8:15 that morning. Just 5 minutes later, out of Dulles International, Flight 77 took off, followed by Flight 93 out of New Jersey. In less than an hour, 4 planes were flying over our nation with over 240 passengers and crew. We can never imagine the thoughts and fears of those on board, as many have prayed, made phone calls they could, and those who took heroic actions, as we heard in Flight 93 as it crashed into Shanksville, Pennsylvania, saving what was possibly an attack on the White House. At 8:46, American Airlines Flight 11 struck the North Tower. What many thought to be an accident, and I was one of those. I said that had to be an accident. It was quickly dismissed. Just 18 minutes later, as United Flight 175 struck the South Tower of the world as the world watched, we knew then that our nation was under attack. As hundreds of first responders headed towards and into the towers to rescue those trapped, Flight 77 circled over Washington, D.C., and then at 09:45 crashed into the west side of one of our nation's securest facilities, the Pentagon. It crashed into the E-ring, the outer ring. And I know that well because I have a very good friend that was in the E-ring at the time of the crash. Lieutenant Colonel Brian Birdwell, now one of your state senators. God had his hand on Brian that day because nature called, and he left a meeting in his office to go down the hallway a short distance to the men's room. And as he was stepping out of the men's room, the plane crashed. Everyone in his office that day died. He managed to survive with burns over 60% of his body and 39 surgeries to get through it. He's carrying those scars today, but he's serving you in our state senate. And then at 10:10, Flight 93, which had been overtaken by the passengers with a heroic "Let's roll," crashed the plane into an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, killing all 44 aboard. Knowing exactly what they were doing when they were doing it, they sacrificed themselves in order to save others. And back in New York, as the evacuation of the towers continued and the heroes ascended the staircase, most already knowing their fate, running into the danger, not away from it, were our first responders. The unimaginable occurred. At 9:58, the South Tower just 56 minutes after being struck, collapsed, and followed 27 minutes later by the collapse of North Tower. I stand here today with you not as a responder or a rescuer, but as an American who believes in keeping promises. And my brothers and sisters are promise keepers also. As you see, 20 years ago, I, along with several others, made a promise to never forget each and every year what happened on 9/11 in 2021. On September 11th, 2021, terrorists killed over 3,000 souls here on our territory, in our country, on our land. And they murdered 412 first responder heroes that lost their lives over the past 20 years. And hundreds and more have died, and thousands are still suffering from what they experienced on 9/11. We will never really know the true amount of tragedy and suffering that Americans had as a result of that one day of an attack on our soil. And I personally will never let their deaths or suffering be forgotten. That is a promise that I will keep. 20 years ago, our country was in great turmoil. We never thought we would ever be able to recover from such a violent attack. It seemed almost hopeless. But then September 12th came, and amazing things happened all over the country. People from all walks of life, all nationalities, colors, creeds, political views came together as a nation. Our humanity was recognized in each other and was displayed with hugs, handshakes, sympathetic nods, and our churches all of a sudden were overwhelmed with the numbers of people showing up. Pastor, if we only had the people coming to our churches today that we had on September 12th, I think you probably wouldn't have room for them all. The colors of our nation's flag flew high and proud, and everywhere you looked, we began to heal. September 11th will always be remembered as one of the most horrific days in our history. And let us never forget the day the nation came together as God intended us to be, because we are a nation founded by God on godly principles. We are a Judeo-Christian nation that God put in place for His purposes. And we know that because of our roots of exceptionalism that's behind the establishment of America. We started in 1620 before the first settler stepped foot on soil here with a Mayflower Compact for the glory of God is mentioned several times in that compact. And in 1776, in our Declaration of Independence, we wrote in there that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And they stated in there, we do this with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. They were depending on God to guide this nation. They mutually pledged their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honors to this. And then in our Constitution, we secured that. We're asking for the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. Liberty, something we don't think a lot about. The liberty of limited government that they talk about, or includes the limited government, fiscal responsibility, personal responsibility, free markets, our individual rights to freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom to petition the government, and self-defense. You know, in the movie Braveheart, the legendary William Wallace, played by Mel Gibson, as he was dying, being gutted, all he shouted was freedom, freedom, freedom. That's what we have in America. We have liberty and freedom that we don't quite understand what it is we have even. And this was impressed on me when I read a book recently written by a man that lives in Rockwall. But he was born a Muslim Pakistani. The book he wrote was called Beyond the Golden Door. Why I read it is still a mystery to me. But in it, he had one of the most profound statements I've ever heard or seen written. And he said, let me put it. He was born a Pakistani Muslim, but he was sent by his rich family to Texas to get an education. He went to North Texas and got his degree, but he met a Christian woman there that he eventually married, became a Christian, has a family and a successful business, and he wrote this book. And in it, he said, most Americans do not appreciate the liberty that they have because they've never lost it. And folks, we are about to lose our liberty in this country. We cannot let the blood of our warriors that have gone before us into battle to defend the principles on which our country was founded, and the first responders that gave their lives in response to a terrorist attack that was intended to start the process of taking our liberties from us. We must never forget what we have, and we as individuals, wherever we are in our life, have to stand hard against any tyranny, any attack on our principles and our way of life, where it comes from, whether it's from a foreign nation or if it comes from within our own government. We are to stand against it and fight for the liberty that these first responders and our warriors have sacrificed for you. And I can tell you, I will fight for this with every bone in my body to the last warm breath leaves my cold, dead body. I will stand and defend the principles of liberty for you and our prosperity and all of our children and grandchildren. God bless you. God bless Texas, and thank you for being here today.